The spitting cobra is the name commonly assigned to a variety of different venomous snake species. They evolved over time to spit this venom up to 10 feet, primarily as a means of warding off any potential attackers. These cobras are endemic to the continents of Asia and Africa. Llamas and alpacas are another member of the animal kingdom that are known for using spit on a regular basis. Native to Northwest South America, how's that for an oxymoron? These mammals are known to projectile vomit towards humans and other llamas as a way to communicate their annoyance. Neither of these species are native to North America. If released into the wild, they'd be considered invasive. Of the roughly 130 animals recognized on Florida's invasive species list, neither spitting cobras or llamas are present. Weeks 0 and 1 were super exciting, but as far as qualifying games, there wasn't much to go around. Stanford's RCS, after choking to Hawaii, only came out to 1.80, which would have been outside the top 90 compared to all qualifying chokes from 2024. Army's collapse was a bit more seismic, registering a 6.01, which would have been good enough for 30th last season, though it would be discounted due to the game going to overtime. As you can imagine, that makes for a pretty boring segment when discussing the worst chokes of the week. Fortunately, Week 2 did not go out with a whimper. We had a whopping 11 qualifying games this week, with all but 2 of them being worse than what Captain Andrew Luck's unit gave us back in Week 0. With so much to sort through, I figured it'd be more fun to go through each qualifying collapse this week. After giving each game its proper attention, what would be more exciting than letting the viewers vote on what they deem the biggest blunder? By the time the season comes to a close, it might be a fun additional stipulation before determining the worst chokes of 2025. So after the vid, go ahead and comment which game you think should be on the radar by year's end, RCS be damned. We'll go primarily from lowest to highest RCS, spending more time per game depending on the magnitude of disaster, though I'm saving 2 special moments for last. To start, we have Virginia visiting NC State, a calculated RCS of 0, but only because the Cavs blew their 2-score lead before the end of the third quarter. Next up is Bryant's visit to UMass, with the Minutemen wasting no time in completing the second FCS choke of the season. They had a 20-3 lead in the second quarter, but would register a 1.50 RCS by managing to lose in regulation. Following them would be Sacramento State visiting Nevada, scoring a 2.28 after the Wolfpack shut them out in the second half. Northern Colorado would have been next, scoring a 2.69 after blowing a 17-7 third-quarter lead, but were absolutely giving the Bears a ref exemption after the 34.5-point underdogs got absolutely hosed to end the game. I made a joke about not knowing what a catch was last week, but this is ridiculous. Called a touchdown on the field, you admittedly can see the ball moving a bit as Cheeks rolls to secure the catch, but at no point is there clear and obvious evidence of this ball hitting the ground. This is just an absolutely disgraceful display by the officials. Moving on, we actually had a role reversal when Army visited Kansas State. KSU narrowly avoided a Week 0 choke in Ireland, but something is wrong with Kleiman's team. They started the season ranked 17th, but find themselves in a complete tailspin. Army had to start their backup QB, Cade Helms, due to their starter getting hurt at the end of that Tarleton State game. In the third quarter, Army drove down the field and took the lead after converting multiple 4th and 3s. But KSU would house the ensuing kickoff. Army continued going forward on 4th down, and their kicker came through this time. But here's the best part of this game that scored a 3.93 RCS. Instead of kicking it deep to the guy that just returned a kick for a touchdown, they go to squib it. It hits off a KSU player, and Army recovers. Whether or not this was intentional, what an electric way to convert what the box score suggests is an onside kick. Army eventually took the lead after a Cade Helms touchdown. They'd pick off Avery Johnson on the next drive to seal it, and you can only wonder what Avery's dad did in the stadium after losing this game as 16.5-point favorites. Though the craziest stat from this game has to be this. In the entire second half, KSU only had possession for 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Army had the ball for nearly 90% of the final half. Obviously, KSU scoring on a kickoff isn't necessarily a bad thing, but man, that is just insane. Next up is Marshall hosting Missouri State in their first year as an FBS program. We know that Marshall lost basically their entire roster and coaching staff with the departure of Charles Huff. But man, Tony Gibson choking a 20-7 lead to a team that should probably finish last in their respective conference is nuts. Scoring a 4.30, it's not quite their game against Georgia Southern last year, and of course, finding highlights for this game was almost impossible, but the CUSA Facebook came through. After going up 20-7, the commentator relinquished the kiss of death.
I think the Herd have found themselves a kicker.
Because on Marshall's second drive of the fourth quarter, their kicker's very next field goal attempt misses from just 26 yards out. Missouri State would score a touchdown on their next drive, and an ugly Marshall interception would end it. Scoring a 4.87, Western Michigan maintained a 2-score lead most of the second half hosting North Texas. But they'd trip over themselves a few times, eventually leading to OT, and the Mean Green would escape, proving directional Texas is superior to directional Michigan. Moving on to a battle between two Texas teams when SMU hosted Baylor, scoring a 9.04, this collapse would have been a possible top 5 candidate last season. Up by 2 touchdowns, midway through the fourth quarter, the Mustangs defense allows Sawyer Robertson to carve them up and tie it in regulation. Last year's breakout QB, Kevin Jennings, orchestrates a would-be game-saving drive, but their kicker misses from 57. Whenever I hear Kevin Jennings' name, I can't help but think of Jeopardy legend Ken Jennings, so as a nod to him and the late Alex Trebek. Week 2 SMU copycatted Week 1 Army, losing in overtime after this sequence of events. What is missing an overtime field goal to lose at home? Though this game might fall under the superhuman performance exemption, with Sawyer Robertson taking over later in the game. Heading to upstate New York, we'll find a whopping 10.20 RCS with UConn's visit to Syracuse, holding the Orange offense to just 6 points until late in the fourth quarter. Facing a 4th and 4 that would in all likelihood end it if stopped, UConn allows a massive touchdown. Though this is the type of game that gets an exemption and major discount. Why? The intangibles. Syracuse actually takes the lead in regulation, and then UConn manages to somehow tie it and send the game to OT. Yes, it's a pathetic collapse by Jim Mora's squad, but it doesn't hold a candle to what I deem as the 2 actual worst chokes of the week. Kenny Dillingham made comments about how difficult it was to find a hotel in Stark Vegas, and Mississippi State fans made sure to educate him. The AP 12 team in the nation and one of the favorites to win the Big 12 faced off against the worst team in the SEC the past few seasons. Since the tragic passing of college football legend Mike Leach, the Bulldogs have struggled to gain any momentum in the sport. They have one of the lowest NIL budgets in the conference and are surrounded by powerful, wealthy college football programs in nearly every direction. It's incredibly difficult for them to recruit and retain in-state talent, let alone poach guys from out of state. Dillingham's Sun Devils, on the other hand, are coming off an incredible season that saw them win the Big 12 during their first season in the conference. Returning breakout QB and preseason Heisman candidate Sam Leavitt, ASU was able to bring in extra talent this offseason, recalling that they brought in running back Kanye Udo from Army to replace Cam Scadaboo's production on the ground, along with starter Kyson Brown. Better yet, the Sun Devils led the country in overall returning production, with 17 2024 starters remaining on the team for the 2025 season, including 10 players on defense, with an entire offseason and spring training to continue developing chemistry, facing off against a Bulldogs team that spent the past 2 seasons going 1-15 in conference play, with their sole win being an ugly 7-3 victory over Arkansas, and only other wins being Eastern Kentucky and UMass. This should essentially be a tune-up game for ASU before they begin conference play. But early into the second quarter, Arizona State finds themselves down 17. It's not until the very end of the first half that they generate enough offense to attempt and nail a 51-yard field goal. But good coaches are known for their halftime adjustments, and Dillingham's squad was fired up, immediately scoring. The defense shook off the jet lag too, not allowing MSU to do anything after they took that 17-0 lead. ASU scores 20 unanswered, so with less than 2 minutes remaining, we're assuming this is just another playoff contender engaging in a super sloppy game against inferior competition that they will inevitably escape. But the Bulldogs didn't hear no bell. Well, I mean, cowbell sure, but metaphorically no, because they blow a coverage wide open on 3rd and 9 to take the lead with 30 seconds left, sending Kenny back to Tempe unranked and reeling, as they'll now likely need to win the Big 12 to have any hope of making it back to the CFP, along with an RCS of 5.08. That is oh so generous, all things considered. In a wide open Big 12, good luck.
Oh my God! They killed Kenny!
Former Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen was poached by the Florida Gators after 8 seasons of turning the Bulldogs into an annual SEC contender. His stint in Gainesville was ultimately cut short amid his 4th season. This, in spite of the fact that in year 3, he had the Gators on the cusp of the 4-team college football playoff. However, The most memorable moment from Mullen's 2020 campaign wouldn't be the shootout against Nick Saban's Alabama in the SEC championship game, but the week before, when corner Marco Wilson inexplicably chucked an LSU tight end's shoe down the field, right in front of a ref. This
disgusting act
would ultimately lead to LSU stealing a 37-34 victory. And while it wouldn't be the sole reason for Mullen's termination, it's hard not to look back on it as the catalyst. Mullen's exit opened the door for Sunbelt Billy. Napier had done so well in Lafayette with the Raging Cajuns that he was considered one of the slam dunk hires of the 2021 coaching carousel. It was known that there would be some growing pains to recover from the dumpster fire that Mullen had left behind, so a few seasons getting his guys were expected from exhausted Gator fans ready to return to the glory that was brought on by the Urban Meyer era. Though by 2024, patience in the swamp was wearing thin. In early November of last season, the university had to release a statement confirming that Napier would be returning for the 2025 season, a vote of confidence as demands for his firing became more common. Despite the fact 2 days later his Gators would be blown out by Texas, they'd return to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and complete back-to-back upsets of 21st-ranked LSU and 9th-ranked Ole Miss, the latter of those ultimately being responsible for keeping Lane Kiffin's Rebels out of the playoffs. Though, the most exciting aspect of these victories wasn't the Gators playing spoiler. The team actually looked good. DJ Lagway was making insane plays, and their defense was finally living up to its billing. Napier looked like he genuinely might be the man for the job. They'd follow it up with wins over rival FSU and a commanding win in the Gasparilla Bowl over Tulane. Coming into the 2025 season, Florida was seen by many as a dark horse SEC contender. Lagway played himself into preseason Heisman conversations. Kirk Herbstreit lauded the team's ability to overcome adversity and admired how Napier kept the team focused while outside noise grew louder and louder. In their season opener, the Gators dismantled Long Island in a shutout that saw Lagway throw as many touchdowns as incompletions. The AP fancied them the 13th best team in the country. Future CFB Commissioner Josh Pate's model thought even higher of them at number 8. The hype was palpable. Despite a schedule that boasts 8 ranked teams prior to the beginning of Week 3, Napier had finally brought Florida back to the cusp of greatness and meaningful postseason games, right where Mullen had left them. Until Brendan Bett channeled his inner llama. As 18.5-point favorites, Florida shouldn't have even been in this situation. Only scoring 16 against an American Conference team was already enough to cause concern. But USF just beat a ranked Boise team, and it's possible they're totally legit. Escaping this game with a 1-point victory would still be enough to stoke the flames of hype. But while Gator fans tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed, USF capitalized and in 2 plays had moved the ball to the Florida red zone. Napier might have been able to use the same excuse regarding his clock management, but on the drive prior he elected to throw 2 passes, both landing incomplete, ultimately giving USF the necessary time and timeouts to even fantasize about engineering a game-winning drive. And after the spit take, instead of using his timeouts to give his Heisman candidate a shot to manufacture his own game-winning drive, he let USF milk the clock all the way, ensuring that their 20-yard field goal attempt would be the last play of the game. Mullen wasn't fired because of the shoe game. It was only a microcosm of issues on a much grander scale. But it is still the moment that a blossoming Florida team nosedived back to SEC mediocrity. Napier wasn't fired as a result of the spit game, but we can only wonder if, come November, this won't be the iconic image forever tied to his tenure in Gainesville.